Hey everybody, and welcome to this 8th episode of Motivating Moments. I am Pastor Steve, your host, and just so excited to share our time together today. Hey, today I want to talk to you about an interesting subject. I want to talk to you about the power to resume. The power to resume. Before we do that, just want to spend a few minutes here with you in introduction just to kind of work through this thought a little bit. I know that was a hard and a swift transition there, straight from "Hey, how are you?" into the subject matter. But we'll circle back around and get to some of the other preliminary parts in a little bit. But I wanted to jump in with you, and I want to first say, if you're looking around, if you're used to seeing this in the video format, and you're looking behind me and you're seeing some different surroundings that don't look familiar at all, that's because I'm not at all in familiar surroundings. As a matter of fact, I am podcasting even a video version here from a hotel room in Columbus, Ohio. If you don't know, I am from Eastern North Carolina. But we're up here with our church for a conference, and this is where I am. And I'm gonna kind of move forward and even use that bit as a illustration for today's subject. So my wife and I have had so many things going on in life recently. Just in the last couple of months, we've had loss of loved ones with the passing of both of my wife's parents, sadly a week apart from each other. And we've been doing a lot of traveling, a lot of missions works, and we have a huge project going on at the church we pastor, which is taking a lot of our time and energy on the side. So all of that pulled together, it's been weeks now since I've been able to just sit down and just bring these discussions to you, the podcast listener. And I'm so excited to be back again and encouraging you and hopefully motivating you towards your goals, your dreams, your visions. And just maybe this will be a shot in the arm for you this week as this podcast comes out that will just help you. So, been missing you, as I said, last 6 weeks or so. And this is the segue into this episode, because as there has been a gap since our last time together, I want to talk to you about the power that you have to resume. Because as I'm in this situation, I realize that this is not exactly the rhythm that I wanted to carry through to the podcast audience. Those of you that are joining in on a set rhythm to receive encouragement, to find motivation in these messages. So this is not the rhythm, to have had that gap there in the summer. It's not what I wanted, but sometimes that's life. It comes, and you do the best you can. You operate within your bandwidth. You just have to stay inside your capacities to do certain things. And priority just jumped in there, and things demanded of us that made it an absolute physical impossibility. We've talked about some of those things before. What is a legitimate excuse and what is just something that you've made up. And certainly we've had a lot of legitimacy in our reasons that we couldn't be here with you. But I realized along the way that if we ever start something, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm using an assumption here as I'm talking to you, but I feel like I'm not alone in this, that if we ever start something that we can't continue with the rhythm, with the consistency, and with the uninterrupted measure that we had originally planned, then we can start to feel some kind of way about the whole thing. And maybe we begin to say things to ourselves like, well, that just didn't work out, or, it was foolish for me to try that to start with. And we can create these scenarios in our mind that make it absolutely harder than it has to be to simply resume. Just start again. Just pick up where you left off. And the really funny thing about that is that in our on-demand generation, and we are an on-demand generation. When I was a kid, if something came on TV, you either saw it when it was live, or you caught it in the season reruns, or if you were really fortunate, maybe you had a VCR and it recorded for you and you could rewatch. But in our on-demand generation, Netflix holds your shows in queue. This podcast will hold this episode in queue for you. You can listen to it halfway through, stop, go do something else, come back, push play, and it's going to pick up exactly where you left off. And many things in our generation are that way. But I know that I've dealt with it often in my life. And again, I know this is a grand assumption here, and I feel this, and perhaps you do as well, that if we can't do something perfect, then we just won't do it at all. And for many of us, I know for me, a pause is a blemish on the face of our work, and therefore it must be stopped because it's no longer perfect. But I was meeting with a gentleman the other day, and we were talking about some of the challenges that he was facing in life and some of the answers that he was searching for, some of the questions they just didn't have the answers to supply. And I just stopped, I looked across the table, and this is what I want to do, is look across the table or reach through this podcast right now and encourage you and say that imperfect progress is better than no progress at all. I'm going to say that again. Imperfect progress is better than no progress at all. Listen, I'm sitting here. There's something going on outside the window. A few moments ago, there were kids running down the hallway. Just before that, there were sirens out on the street. I don't know what you may hear in the background of this podcast, but I know that this is something that I'm supposed to do. And I know that the first and third Tuesday is my commitment to you. It's my commitment to myself, as much as I am able, as much as life permits, and I am not making poor excuses, but I have legitimate reasons. I'm going to be here first and third Tuesday of every month to bring this word of encouragement, this catalyst for motivation to you. And, I just realized that an imperfect progress is better than no progress at all. The lighting may be a little off. The sound of the audio may be a little off. We want to strive for excellence in everything we do. I'm not trying to discount that. We don't need to be sloppy in our work. We need to be passionate, and if we're passionate about it, we need to pursue excellence in it. But imperfect progress often is better than no progress at all. And the truth be told, as we're rating imperfections, let's just be really honest right now and say that we're harder on ourselves than anybody else is. We are harder oftentimes in critiquing our work than other people are. Why? Because we have the highest level passion around the work that we're doing, or we should have the highest level passion around the work that we're doing. Therefore, we should be striving for the highest level of excellence. But still, the thought remains the same. An imperfect progress is better than no progress at all. So, these are not seasons, because sometimes I struggle with this, maybe you do. These are not seasons just because there's been a pause, a slight imperfection. It doesn't mean that you have to reinvent yourself just because you paused on a project. You don't necessarily have to redesign, redraft, or recreate something just because there's been a season for you where your bandwidth is dropped, where your capacities and capabilities couldn't permit you to continue in something, you have, and oftentimes we have, the power to resume. I want to encourage you today that if you're sitting on something, now granted, this is not the case with every project. Some things have a shelf life, some products will expire, but that's just the way it is. But I am willing to assume right now, and I think I'm pretty safe in doing so, that there are a lot of times that we are sitting on projects that they don't really have a shelf life. We could pick it up right where we left off. We could resume. We could just restart and just push play and take off from the queue exactly where we were and move forward in it. I am naming this and labeling this episode number 8 because it's episode number 8. Is it a couple of weeks late? It is. But it's episode number 8 because we're just resuming. There's no need to start over. No need to rename the podcast, rename the show. We're just resuming where we left off. And I want to ask you today, what are you holding in queue? What's that thing that you need to get back to? That thing that you're waiting for the perfect circumstances, you're waiting for the just right scenario to come to pass. It ain't coming. I know that's not good English, but it ain't coming. What excuses are you making for not getting back to it? And I just want to encourage you today to resume. Maybe it's a dream that you've had sitting on the shelf for years, that you worked on it for a little while, you set it aside, you had more questions than you had answers. You maybe didn't have the resources to pull it together in the exact way that you envisioned it, and you've just set it aside. I'm saying to you today that maybe it's time to resume. Prayerfully consider those things. Some things are, as I said earlier, this is not true for every project, but I do believe that one of the wealthiest, richest places in the world probably is a graveyard, because that is where so many unrealized dreams and visions and goals lie, because we just have a hard time picking up where we left off, not feeling like that we can't just start, pick it back up, push the button, resume, keep moving forward, step by step, piece by piece, little by little, and one day you'll look up and you'll be at your goal. But that's the only way to get there, because life is full of pivots. Life is full of times that you and I have to flex, and we just have to take a different direction than we planned. That doesn't necessarily negate the plan. We just need to know exactly how unnecessary it is for us to completely reinvent ourselves in those seasons, and when it is wise and prudent just to walk back in, pick up where we left off, and resume. I believe that. I know that's powerful for my life, because that's an assessment that I have to make. Is this a project that I can simply resume? And if it is, we're going to resume it right where we left off. I'm going through the notes. I'm thinking about and just remembering the history of what we've been through to get to the points we are. Are there any adjustments we need to make before we resume? Maybe so, maybe not. But we're going to study what has been. We're going to celebrate what has been. We're going to acknowledge the gap, but then we're going to resume and move forward. And I know there are a lot of things in my life now that are moving forward because I've just simply pushed resume. And I want to encourage you with that too today. Whatever it is, take that honest assessment of the project, the goal, the dream, the desire, and if possible, just resume. Pick up where you left off. Keep moving forward. Hey, I'd love to see you. I'm glad that you're here for the podcast, but I'd love to see you on any of our other outlets. You can find out more about Motivating Moments at motivatingmoments.online. And I am on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Pastor Steve Evans, and you should be able to find me then. And until the next time that you and I get together and share this time of encouragement, I'm Pastor Steve, and know that I'm praying for you. Stay motivated.